بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين ما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First of all, I'd like to say Jazakumullah khair for coming out and taking your valuable time to attend this little, unison of brothers coming together to learn for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Apologies, I've had a long day, so I want to make this as interactive as possible. So it'll be focusing on pertinent issue that which many of those in the West, especially the Muslims from the diaspora, whether you're from the Turkish background, Albanian, Pakistani, it affects us all in some way or another, right? And this issue is becoming more prevalent and it's becoming a concern. You may know what I'm going to talk about indirectly, but I'll make it more clearer as this particular session continues. So if I do stop and I ask questions, if you don't want to engage, mu mushkila, it's not a problem, but I want it to be interactive because I don't want this to be a monologue from me. It's good that all brothers participate and it makes it quite engaging and interactive. So the topic at hand today, and it's affecting us so much, is the concept of the abuse of the Maqasid al-Sharia. So in English terms, Maqasid al-Sharia is the objectives of the Sharia. So what are the objectives that the Sharia comes with? How can we benefit from them? And what we have to understand, the Deen of Islam, our Masadir is connected to the primary sources, which is the Quran and the Sunnah. And then obviously you could add on top of that the understanding of the Salaf, and then the Manhaj of the Salaf, and then he carries on from the Tabi'un, wa atba Tabi'un. But the principle and the main principle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating us is to worship Him. We need to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, giving pure glory to Him, manifesting our worship in the best way possible. And that is done through most, common is the salawat al-khams, it's the 5 daily prayers. Then you got the adhkar, then you got the dua. So all of these things come together naturally. But priority, which is mafrood ala al-muslimin, is the salawat al-khams, the 5 daily prayers. But on top of that, there are subsidiaries, branches. So another example would be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that He created us as the best nation for mankind to enjoin the good and to forbid the evil. So that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised this generation and this ummah of who? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. So we all have to do our utmost best to navigate this in the best manner possible, using hikmah, but at the same time not abusing maqasid. And this is the main issue. It's the over-abuse of the objectives. And again, it might sound like it's targeting certain individuals, which I'm not going to mention because I don't want to make this about individuals, but there are certain pseudo-scholars and speakers in the West who are using these objectives and taking it down a very dangerous path, right? So I'll give you one riwayah. So just to sort of, ease you in gently, enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. So the question to ask is, what do you understand when I say enjoying the good and forbidding the evil? Just a simple answer. One person or two people can answer it. What do you understand by enjoying the good and forbidding the evil? Does anyone want to contribute, or am I asking too early at the moment? Everyone had a cup of coffee, yeah? Okay, so I'll go into it. So first of all, this topic, right, and again, the objectives of the Sharia, which is the Maqasid al-Sharia, have become, for some scholars, not all, because I don't want to generalize all scholars, but the Western-speaking scholars, most notably, it's a means to achieve their whims and their goals. So whims, what I mean by whims is their desires. Okay? So, that's more sort of formal English, whims. And we, as an ummah living in the West, we need to be careful, right? And we need to be very, very aware of this approach, so we put things in their appropriate place. So this is why I'm trying to highlight that the conversation will be quite technical, but I'll try to break it down to the best of my ability, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. So enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. So I'll give you al-athar, an athar meaning a narration, and it's mentioned in al-i'tisam of Imam al-Shatibi, right? Imam al-Shatibi and his i'tisam. Have you heard of Uwais al-Qarni? Anyone, show of hands? Uwais al-Qarni radhiyallahu anhu. Okay, so we know his story, right? Very impactful. He could have been a Sahabi, but he had to stay back to look after his parents. Most notably was his mother, from memory. So he mentioned a very important point that Imam Shatibi mentioned, وَقَدْ نُكِلَ عَنْ سَيْدِ الْعُبَّادِ بَعْضَ الصَّحَابَةِ. That Imam Shatibi mentions it's been transmitted from the leaders of the worshippers after the Sahaba. Look at the status. It was a tabi'in. And we all know that Uwais al-Qarni, I think the Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba to ask Uwais al-Qarni to make dua for them, from that famous author from Umar bin Khattab. And he said that in the amra bil ma'ruf wa nahi an munkar, that indeed the amr bil ma'ruf, the enjoying the good and forbidding the evil, has not left a believer any friends. So if you enjoin the good and forbid the evil, I assure you, you would have no support. In general terms, there's exception to the rules, but in general terms, you won't have much. Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, you know the status with what happened to him. That he enjoined the good and forbid the evil, that he got exiled and he died alone. So don't be afraid, and I'm saying this across the board here, don't be afraid that when you have to deal with delicate issues where Islam is being diluted and maqasid are being put in front of the text, that you have an obligation to manifest and defend your Islam. Now, what I mean by defend your Islam is because if you don't speak up, then that becomes a means for those popular speakers to dilute it further and further without being challenged. And we all want to make sure that Islam is preserved, right? Not diluted, not watered down, not to appease. And us here in the West, we have a bigger obligation. Why? Because we're what? Minority. You see? We are not minority. And we've got kids here. We want our kids to be raised in a generation where we give them that upbringing so that they could teach their kids and their kids. Because the last thing we want is Islam to be diluted where Islam has no presence in the non-Muslim lands. Okay? So what did he mention? It doesn't leave a believer any friends. And why I've highlighted this point is because people don't want to rock the boat. You know, in English terms, rock the boat, meaning if you rock the boat too much, you're going to get people that go against you. The Jama'ah, like Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, that the Jama'ah is ma wafiq al-haq in kunta wahdak. That the Jama'ah, the majority is the one that conforms to the truth, or what conforms to the truth, even if you're alone. So don't think numbers means success. We have a common trend with, and one of our popular speakers in Britain has said it, algorithm prostitutes, you know, where everything is following the impressions, the algorithm, and that's what people think is success. But one community that we have here, whether it's in Dortmund or Essen, or I'm using these words now because I've just come accustomed to those cities, if you enjoin the good and forbid the evil, you'll raise a generation of those who adhere to firm principles, not follow the crowd, not follow the status quo, like they like to say. So getting back to the Maqasid Sharia, right? And this is where I need to sort of stay on point, because if I digress, apologies, because I've got some Red Bull and I'm growing some wings. And you know what I'm going to do. You know, you're looking at me. I don't want to do it, but I'll embarrass myself. So, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, everyone knows who Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah is, the student of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. I don't want to go into what strand you belong to because it's going to get messy. But Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, a Shami scholar in the 8th century Hijri, the student of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullah alayhi. He wrote a book called Al-Wabil al-Sayyid, right? And he mentioned a author from, have you heard of the famous Zahid, Sheikh Ismail al-Harwi? Ismail al-Harwi, who wrote the book Dhamm al-Kalam, from Herat. Very famous scholar, but he's like one of the major scholars of our history. I think he was in the 4th or 5th century. And look what he said, subhanAllah Adim, regarding the extremes now. So the Maqasid Sharia, what we're finding is the popular speakers using ilal clauses to place objectives in front of the text. You see? So we know, look, we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The simple answer would be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us or informed us in the Quran to worship Him. And that's enough for us, right? That suffices. It's come from Rabbul Alameen in the last revelation. That should be enough. But living in this world of, you know, philosophy and, you know, trying to sound speak better English than the Queen. You know, we try to give da'wah, we try to use impressive words. Yes, we need to give da'wah in the best manner possible. So you give da'wah according to the person you're speaking to, right? If someone's highly intellectual, then you have to have a good representation, good argumentation, good vocabulary. Your construction of your sentence has to be on point. So he mentioned that in terms of Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy al Munkar, going back to the Maqasid now, it shouldn't be opposed by leniency. You know, like leniency, like someone's like just using the objectives, the text is there, but they start to lower the bar, they lower the benchmark. So everything's lenient and they use clauses, but the objectives of the Sharia is this. But the text is right in front of you, but they override the text by the objective. And this is clearly not correct. You see? So Sheikh Harwi mentioned that you do not oppose amr bil ma'ruf by leniency. Nor also at the same time, don't be opposed to it with extreme shidda, li tashdidin ghal. So you know when you enjoy the good, some people are very harsh, like in your face, and like you feel like you've, okay, look, I understand the message, but that doesn't have any desired result as well. Because you could literally push someone the opposite way. He may not want to practice. So be careful when you give da'wah, how you give da'wah. And employ hikmah to the best of your ability as per the Quran. So what's the two extremes you've got? Too much leniency, like everything, yeah, don't worry, akhi, Allah's Ghafurur Rahim, but then, go have a pint, down the road. No, Allah's Ghafurur Rahim. This is too lenient. Yeah, we understand, but Allah also is Shadid al-Iqab. He is severe in punishment as well. So you have to have that balance. And then he mentions, subhanAllah, this is very important, I want to get your attention to, that it should not be carried ba'ilal tawahnan inqiyad, which meaning that you have ilals in place that weakens the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now I'll ask you a question now, putting that last point into perspective. Do you notice the popular speakers or the pseudo speakers use so much ilal, so much reasons and clauses to weaken the obedience, like making everything so lackadaisy, but it's following Western secular norms? Is that something that you're noticing there's a trend now? Islam is conformed by these popular speakers to appease certain cultural, civilizational trends within the West. Do you find that? Or am I just looking into it a bit too much? It's happening, isn't it? So, going into the objectives of the Sharia, right? And I say this with pure, respect to those popular speakers. I'm not doubting that they don't have love for Islam. I'm not doubting that they don't have commitment to Islam. But you're raising a generation of no backbone, defeatist, impressionable Muslims that would always move the goalpost to appease those who are most notably the Western, if you're from Germany, the Germans, or if you're from England, the Brits, or if you're in America, the Americans. Because if you start relinquishing your principles, then what happens is you'll start relinquishing to the point that you will have nothing to give. And and I'm not saying this in a way to scare you, what will tend to happen is that potentially it may lead to you following the lizard's hole as per the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that you will follow the people before you, shibran bi shibrin, inch by inch, handspan by handspan, even to the point that if they enter to the lizard's hole, you would follow them. And then when the Sahaba radiallahu anhu asked, Aman al-Yahuda wa Nasara, will it be the Jews and the Christians? And the Prophet ﷺ responded by saying, Faman, who else? Do you see that happening in our times right now? Do you see us following the lizard's hole? So what do we have to do? We have to be prideful about Islam. We've got everything to give. Is right? We've got everything to give. We've got Islam. We've got Iman. We've got this ummah. We've got this wala wal bara. We've got many different nationalities and ethnicities in this room today. Right? What brings us together is under the kalima la ilaha illallah. Right? And we unite upon that. No Arab is superior to a non-Arab, and no non-Arab is superior to an Arab. What's the clause? Illa bittaqwa. Illa bittaqwa. So all of us need to come together. Being a minority in the West, our strength will come with our unity, right? And we would disagree. I was saying this to the brothers today, and even the day before when I landed, that there will be differences. We would have things where we have a split. We will not necessarily see eye to eye. But the greater goal and the objective, and again, we're bringing the objective of Sharia, is that we manifest Islam. And Islam being manifested and the kalima la ilaha illallah being raised, giving da'wah to non-Muslims, will show them that our unity, even though we're minority, we're more unified than you, even though you've got huge numbers. You see? In this room today, we're here for the purpose of seeking Allah's pleasure, right? We're not here for entertainment. We're not here to just make up the numbers. We're all here to enjoin the customs, or enjoin every khair within the deen, the boundaries of the deen, so that we better ourselves. You see? So going back to the objectives of the Sharia, so make it interactive again. The 5 dururiyat al-khams, the 5 dururiyat. I know no one's interacting, I apologize. I might have to drink some Red Bull and I might have to do this on my own. The 5 objectives. Are you aware of the 5 objectives of the Sharia, right? So the Sharia has come to preserve 5 key objectives. This list is not exhaustive. What I mean by not exhaustive, there can be more. But the ulama like Imam Ghazali, Imam Shatibi, who wrote about the usuliyun, who wrote about Maqasid, they said the Sharia has come to preserve 5 specific characteristics. So number 1, do you know the first one? What's the first one that the Sharia has come to preserve? Don't worry, if you don't know, it's fine. Yeah, exactly. Ad-Din. Right? Number 2, doesn't need to be in any specific order, but as long as we can get all that. I'm trying to make it interactive. Yes, Habibi. The Aql. Yeah, so the Aql is 1. What else? So we got 2 out of the 5, Habibi. Lineage, yes. So we got 3 out of the 5. Yes, brother. Life, that's 4. And the last one? Anyone know the last one? Yes, brother. Wealth. Yes. So Imam Shatibi mentions in Al-Muwafaqat, which is a famous book on the Maqasid Sharia, about the objectives of the Sharia. So one thing I want to do before making it too technical, the Sharia has objectives. So for example, why do we not drink alcohol? Why? The basic answer to that will be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it prohibited, right? But what's the objective? Because, it takes over your mind, your soul, you're not in control of your... So the objective is to avoid where you're not in control of your emotions, your faculties, right? But that's now, it's not a qat'i sort of, response, right? But it has connotations, it has connections to it. So these 5 preservations, so Imam Shatibi says that فَقَدْ اتَّفَقَتِ الْأُمَّةِ بَصَائِرُ الْمِلَلِ على أن الشريعة وضعت للمحافظات على ضروريات الخمس. That the Sharia, the Ummah in agreement, so there's اتفقت, like this is unanimously consensus, that, and not just the Ummah, he says, بل سائر الملل. So even the whole different religions also agree upon this as well, subhanAllah. So this is not even disputable. And then as we mentioned, so the order is, Imam Shatibi mentions, that the first one is a deen. The second one is a nafs, right? The third one is nasal, which is lineage. The fourth one is mal, and the fifth one is the aql, right? So now, why have I mentioned this? Because there's now a common trend that a lot of basic principles and the principles that we stick firm to are being diluted in order to bring objectives in front of them, because one, potentially they feel that the Western Muslim doesn't understand these texts because it's too harsh. What I mean by harsh, what do I mean? The penal code, the hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we need to do is we'll talk about the objectives of why, but not talk about the implementation of the nas of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Sharia. This is not like a scare word for those, but because of the media campaign and the propaganda from the West, the Sharia or the Al-Shariah now has become like, oh, you know what, we're afraid to, speak about this topic publicly. We're not talking about enforcing Sharia in the non-Muslim lands, by the way. We want implementation in Darul Islam or the Muslim lands awalan. That's where it should be implemented, right? So, have you heard of a famous Hanafi scholar called Mufti Taqi Usmani, right? Have you heard of him? Very, specializing in Islamic finance, one of the major scholars of our time. And once again, I don't want to make this into a theology debate, but he's obviously from Indo-Pak, where I'm from, like from my parents' background, and he's contributed so much works to benefit the Ummah, joined many conferences, and he's obviously wrote a book called Usul al-Ifta wal-Adab. So, Usul al-Ifta wal-Adab, meaning the principles of fatwa and its adab. Now, he has a chapter, right, called Maqasid Sharia. So he speaks about this matter, and he mentions very, very importantly, he mentions that it's emerged in our time, people that cling on to the statement Maqasid Sharia, and what they want from it is to place it in front of the text. So there are some that use Maqasid Sharia, and what they want from it, so he mentions here, he says, وَقَدْ ظَهَرَ فِي زَمَانِنَا نَاسٌ يَتَمَسَّكُونَ بِكَلِمَةٍ مَقَاصِدِ الشَّرْعِيَّةِ وَيُرِيدُونَ أَنْ يُقِيمُهَا أَمَامَ النُّصُوصِ الشَّرْعِيَّةِ. They want to place it in front of the Imam Sharia. And that's very dangerous. And I'll tell you why. Because if you place objectives in front of the text, right, and he goes into it in much detail, then you believe that the text itself has no value per se. The direct revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what you want to do is, the text is here, but you want to jump from the text and place the actual objectives which are there in front of the text. That's dangerous. So the question to ask is, why do they want to do this? It baffles me why they will put something that we all believe. And remember, these maqasid are very speculative, right? There's no qat'i. Your maqasid for me, so you might bring a maqasid or a masala in front to me and say, this is what I believe, but I could have the different maqasid and masala. So why is yours in front of mine? Rather just stick to the text and everything else is all dhanni, right? It's all speculative. So Mufti Taqi Usmani carries on and he says that based on this, right, that when you find those who say that we have been ordered to follow the maqasid and the masala, duna ittiba' dawahir al-nusus. So they have this impression, and God only knows why. And can I ask, when I say pseudo scholars, Western speakers, is there some scholars that you have in mind that follow this principle? Is there scholars that you have in mind? Don't need to say it, because then they, I don't want a defamation case against me. You know what I mean? But everyone in this room understands when I mention this, there are some scholars that have this approach, right? And this approach, do you feel, and opening this to the floor again, do you feel that this approach is due to appeasing the West, having an inferiority complexity, or is it because they have a certain direction for Western Muslims? Which one do you think it is out of the three? Or could it be all three? What do you think? Make it as interactive as possible. What do you think, Akhi? So you're in front of me, Akhi. You wanted to sit next to me.
I think the second one is something that is probably to the Muslims who have ikhlas.
Yeah.
But they don't know like better.
That's right.
It's like they have this inferiority.
Complexity, yeah. Yeah. That's one of it, isn't it?
I think it's like the most
common one. And do you feel it's a fear of being cancelled as well? So if look, the scholar is mas'ul, right? Is responsible. And he is a shepherd to the flock. Per the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? But usually that refers to father, children, statesmen with their subjects. But also, if you're a community leader or a scholar, then your flock are your congregation. Your flock so you're responsible for them. So if you're bringing about these sort of approaches with the intent of watering down Islam, then really and truly, your da'wah is redundant. There's no weight in it, right? Really and truly. So you're going to purport maqasid in front of the text. That would result in extreme consequences for the Muslims going forward. Now, Mufti Taqi Usmani also mentions, right? He says, but it's true. Look at the fairness of Mufti Taqi, Hafidullah Ta'ala. He says, it's true that everything that Allah legislates in His Sharia, in our religion, right, are built upon masala and maqasid. It's true. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has rulings in place, prohibitions in place, they have objectives and they have benefits. And if there's things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited, there's a benefit as to why we have to refrain from these muharramat, from these sort of prohibitions. He mentions, and there is no doubt in that. La shakka fihi. There is no doubt, Mufti Taqi is saying. And he says, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى لَمْ يَشْرَعْ حُكْمًا فِيهِ عَبْثٌ أَوْ ضَرَرٌ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not legislated anything or any ruling that has any defect, right? This is the best translation I could use it right now. Or any harmful for His creation. So anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated is not harmful, nor does He have any defect to His creation. Allah in infinite wisdom has placed things in place in His haqq or in His appropriate place for the khalq to benefit from. And if there's things that are harmful, so that we refrain from, so that we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then not harm our body like la darara wa la dirara. You see? Then he continues, but the masalih and the maqasid are kalimatun mubhatun fadfada. That these masalih, that when people use these masalih and maqasid, they're kalimat which are mubham, ambiguous and loose. It's like when I say this is a maqasid and I go on a rant on a philosophical, tangent, it's all loose, ambiguous examples, aren't they? There's nothing concrete. So then he mentions, for everything that is mentioned or is viewed in the life of, or the issues regarding your akal, then to you it might be a maqasid, but someone else might say it's not a maqasid. So then it's not binding, is it? So it's not binding on me or you. But so what they do is they put it and they push it and they push it to make out that this is something, built upon qat'i. Qat'i, why we would translate qat'i, something that is definitive. Sorry, I'm losing my channel of thought. Red Bull's getting to me, I think. So then he mentions, subhanAllah, the Mufti Taqi Usmani, that if we continue upon this, then that means that your akal, if you continue upon this, you would think that this akal of yours is not obviously qat'i, and also it's not built upon wahi, is it? This maqasid and masalih that you're presenting, it's not revelation. So it's not binding upon us. And the key point I always try to stress, right, and I say this with full respect, is that any speaker or popular speaker that uses this approach, I assure you there's some insecurities from within. I believe so. Because you really want to benefit your community, then stand true to your principles and stand tall. Because if you don't stand tall, then what you're going to do is you're going to create a community that doesn't really know how to defend Islam in the best manner possible. And look, sacrifices have to be made for the deen, right? Sacrifices have to be made. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created insan, and He mentions that, do you think you not be tested? And Allah has tested those nations before you. And I believe in this particular climate right now, in the 21st century, wallahi al-azim, we are going through fitan. A lot. I'm not even going into this maqasid, masala. We're talking about apostasy. I don't know in Germany, but there's a huge threat of apostasy for the Muslims in the Western lands. No, leave the non-Muslims. I can't speak on their reality because I don't live there. But in the West, the stories I hear is going to uni, and then you got these online right wing, and you're spreading that against Islam. It's a real threat. So why not give the right advice, information for those within our community to strengthen their Islam? Because if you use this maqasid argument and pray in front of the text, what you're doing, you're weakening them. With all due respect, it's a hollow shell. And the hollow shell, continuously you bang it, what will happen? It'll end up cracking, wouldn't it? You understand? But if it's firm, okay, you tried, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's light will never be extinguished. You see, as much as they try. And the ummahs of the past, we know the story when the Maghul came into the Muslims' lands and they were slaughtering the Muslims, and we know the story. But didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise a generation that rescued Islam and Islam prospered? Don't you think that can't happen again? Okay, we're at a bottom point within the ummah, right? Meaning what you see around the world in Palestine and in other places in the Muslim lands, it hurts us, it pains us, right? The statement is true. Whoever does not care about the affair of the believers is not from them. So we have to be careful who we approach for knowledge. Wallah al-azim. And I'm saying this not to use it as a scaremongering tactic. Okay, be careful of him. But you would know based on your natural disposition, what you know, that if someone's coming out with so much concession, is it not a bit hypocritical that the ones who are the mu'tadeen, who are invading our lands, and don't you think they should be talking about peace? You see? But it's us on the back foot. So my message, and again, I don't want to make this too lengthy, I want to make this interactive for Q&As and whatnot, that uqsum billahi al-aliyyil azim, be careful when you find speakers that make concessions consistently. And everything that they mention is always to do with somehow appeasing the powers that be. And I'm not saying the powers that be might be, it could be their community, meaning appeasing their community. It could be appeasing their community leaders. So when they're employed in mosques, and I know in Germany it's a lot different to the UK where, and again, I'm not going to say because I've been told that it comes from the top down. You see what I'm saying? So are they really benefiting their community? No. So the independence of da'wah, we need to be, at the forefront of making our voices heard. With hikmah, with basira, with insight. And I assure you, take this one message that I could deliver today, which I want you to take home, is that what can you do individually within your own community? First, let's start with our families first. That can bring about change. And we know Nuh alayhi salam gave da'wah for how long? 950 years. And there's a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that Anbiya will come on the day of judgment with illa rajulun wahid, just one person that he gave da'wah for so long, and only one person. So sometimes necessarily don't think about numbers. We start off slowly and change will come, providing your niyyah is safi and you have ikhlas. And that's what we have to do as well. We have to have this muraja'ah. We have to have this consistent, rectifying our intention. And I apply this to myself before anyone else, because when you're, giving da'wah, like they say in English, practice what you preach, right? And I make this point very, very firm because and I was speaking to the brothers in the car, that there was a tabi'i, the one who met the companions by the name of Ibn Abi Mulaika. And he said And that's what I'm saying. Nifaq is very, very, we got to be wary of nifaq. For myself, like, giving this reminder and this mudhakira, I could be the furthest away and I'm giving this reminder. That's a sign of nifaq, isn't it? Ayatul munafiq thalatha. Idha haddatha kadhib. And we know the hadith in the akhiri, that when a munafiq has 3-4 signs. If he has one of them, he has signs of nifaq. And he has all of them, he's a munafiq quht. You know what I mean? What is Ibn Abu Mulaika's position on when he met 30 companions? So how many people in this room? Probably about that much or just under. He said, أدركت 30 من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كلهم يخافون النفاق على نفسه. That I met 30 companions from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. All of them feared hypocrisy for themselves. And these are the people that were in the presence of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. Whether they're from the Tuluqa, whether they're from the Muhajirin, whether they're from the Ansar, whether they're from Ashabul Badr or whatever. But they all feared nifaq for themselves. What do you think our state is? What do you think our reality is? So start off with your families, with hikmah. We don't want a heavy hand. We don't want an iron hand, do this, do that. Because human nature, rebellious by nature, right? If you put pressure, what happens is you're going to get the same pressure and the same response. So start off with your families, then start off with your communities. And bit by bit, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open doors. But we have to consistently try. So in Dortmund, I've met the brothers there. You've got a tight community. Uqsum billah. I'm not just saying it. I've been here for 2 days now. Well, just under 2 days, to be fair. I'm an athari, so I have to be quite firm and literal. But I've been here under 2 days, and walillahi alhamd, we have, and I say we because I consider myself part of your community as well, alhamdulillah. The love you've shown, the hospitality that you've shown. Wallahi, it's been amazing. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, accept our efforts and unite our hearts. And ultimately, look, don't fear the blame of the blamers. La yakhafuna lawmata la'im. Don't fear the blamer. Wallahi al-azim. And if you fear the blame of the blamers, surround yourself with genuine brothers that can give you that reminder. And the Prophet ﷺ also said in the hadith that that whoever has the ability to remind his brother or benefit his brother, then do so. And we're all brothers here. So if you've got the ability to remind your brother, whether he's falling into ma'siyah, whether he's falling into sins and fawahish, benefit him, remind him, give him some mudhakkara. Inna ad-deen nasiha. That indeed the deen is advice. So never neglect this important pillar or important trait of the ummah, which is enjoying the good and forbidding the evil, because that's where true success is. And until we don't rectify our affairs, and at the end of the day we all have shortcomings, the ummah won't rise. And the ummah will rise, I promise you that. Whether we're in our communities, the ummah itself will nurture, heroes that will bring about change, inshallah ta'ala. So make that intention, start off slowly, start off within baby steps, and I'll show you the top of Mount Everest isn't high enough for us, bi-idhnillahi al-kareem.